Okay. This is Nancy Nelson. I'm Chair of the Battle Road Scenic Byway Committee, and this is a Zoom meeting, a Zoom public meeting, April 27th, 2023 at 10 o'clock, and I will call the meeting to order at 10:03 for the benefit of the people who are recording this meeting. So we can take a roll call. So Arlington,
Paul Fennelly present. Oh, and there is my esteemed colleague, Clarissa. Good morning.
Good morning.
Lexington,
I'm here and I see the Sheila Pages. I don't.
Yes,
I don't
here.
see Vic.
Lincoln's definitely here.
We're here, yep.
And,
Craig Nicholson here.
Two new people, Andrew Glass and Craig Nicholson, and Bob is here as a member of the public, but he's disappeared. I don't see him right here. And
Really?
Concord's here, myself and Beth. And I see also Josh Levin's here from Mass DOT. I think that's it. That's us. So we're going to do project updates. And Josh, do you want to tell us what you know about the 128 bridge project or any other things that are exciting going on in District 4?
Yeah, sorry, my internet's a little shaky, so hopefully I won't freeze on you guys. Not much to share. The Route 128 project did go out for bid and a contract has been awarded. I don't know right now exactly like what date construction will start. I assume soon, but I can get back to you all with an update once I know more about that.
And who's the contractor?
MAS.
I don't know them actually. Where are they
I
from?
do. I
Who
do.
does? Clarissa, yeah, you would. And probably Lexington, have they done work around here in the past? Do you know? Anybody?
I do
Lexington?
not know, sorry.
Oh, hi, Richard.
They're bridge people. Yeah.
Rich people. Okay. All right. Anything else?
Don't believe so, but you know, as always, between meetings, if you have any questions, feel free to shoot me an email.
Okay. I heard from Chris Clem this morning. He has the same information I do about the grant, and that's nothing. We have heard nothing, but we understand that Federal Highways was a beneficiary of huge amounts of money coming from the Inflation Reduction Act. And so they are working desperately to get that money pushed out, which is pushing their grant program for scenic byways down the line. So I don't know when we'll hear, but Chris also is rotating off as our contact. And there is a new scenic byways coordinator that we will probably see in the future. So that's all I have about that. And then if I know people may be following the Massport issue more closely than I am, but what I would like to know is, would we like to invite Save Our Heritage to give an update about the status of that project? But if other people are up to date on that and want to give us any critical updates, that'd be good. Richard.
Yeah, so I mean, the thing is that obviously if the plans that were put out are implemented, it would greatly affect the byway. So any updates that we can get and any collaboration we can make to try and protect the byway, I think is important.
Yeah, and Save Our Heritage came, Anna and Katie Winchell came to the Concord Historic Issues Forum, and they have a wonderful presentation that summarizes a lot of data that's already coming out from Massport. So it made it comprehensible and manageable in a way that it hadn't been for me before. So, okay. So, that takes care of project updates. So the next item on the agenda would be the continuation of our discussion about the 250th anniversary. And I don't know where we want to start. I think Paul, Arlington brought this to our attention as something we should be paying more attention to. So I know that the towns have been busy, but it would be good to define what members of the committee believe we can do. We have very limited staff and no money. So we could co-sponsor things, but other ideas about what we should be doing, I think it'd be great to discuss those and see what those might be.
So if I can report on the meeting that was held in Lexington a couple of weeks ago. Michelle Sicolo and Mike Barrett, I think, primarily were the sponsors of this meeting that occurred in Lexington. Cindy Freeman, some of the other legislators were there. And essentially the three towns were invited to speak. And each of those three communities, Lexington, Lincoln, and Concord, spoke about their 250th. Even though Cindy Freeman was there, Arlington had a bit of a presence, but when I spoke, I was invited by Michelle Sicolo, and she apologized that we didn't get the direct invite because she meant to invite us. And I reported two things. I reported, number one, that the Byway Committee feels very strongly that any future meetings that occur on this topic should include the town of Arlington.
Richard, can I interrupt you because there's been progress on that front, and Paul can speak to that, I think.
Yeah, and so I did that, and then the other thing.
Richard, can you let Paul speak for a minute?
Okay.
Because he can update on that very topic.
Yep.
But Paul, you're muted.
Yes, thanks. Well, Arlington has been running a bit behind the curve on some of this. One particular situation was this statewide commission that had been launched by the legislature to have Massachusetts better organized for the 250th celebration. There were seats on that commission designated for Lexington, Concord, Lincoln. Apparently there was one for Arlington, but Arlington somehow got its communications a little mixed up and wasn't fully aware of it. Since that time, I have been asked by the Board of Selectmen in Arlington to sit on that commission, which I'm very happy and honored to do. I think it is that commission and the people who sit on it was partially responsible for Arlington not being invited to that meeting that occurred about 2.5-3 weeks ago. If there are future meetings of that type, I'd certainly put myself forward as the person from Arlington that would go there, but it would not be to the exclusion of other people from Arlington. Arlington does have its own townwide 250 planning committee. It's about 6 or 7 people now, including myself, and my role on that town committee is to represent the Battle Road Scenic Byway Committee. So there.
Oh.
I don't know what the Battle Road Scenic Byway Committee can do or say about the plans that are going on in the individual towns, but I do think it's important for us to be at the table listening and, where appropriate, commenting. If this grant comes through, I know that Arlington had requested funding to help us with some of our transportation infrastructure, particularly parking, which is going to be a big issue for us. So in that sense, Battle Road Committee would have a major influence on some of the preparations that Arlington would do. I don't remember exactly what was in the Lexington, Lincoln, or Concord portions of that grant proposal, but Arlington's was focused very much on creating much better parking facilities for the expected surge in visitors.
Yeah, and Beth has her hand up. I know she's she attended the meeting in Lexington and probably has some update about that as well.
Yes, I do have an update. After that meeting, some of us gathered ourselves together and have started meeting separately. Lexington, Lincoln, Concord, and Arlington have now met twice with feedback from Michelle's office to submit a joint request for funding. So Paul, I am so happy to hear that you're now on board. We did meet, we had some representatives from Arlington, but I know it's been a challenge with turnover in staff, and the economic staff has turned over. So, so now we have met twice with the goal that within the next few weeks, we will have 2 items. One is a intermunicipality agreement between the 4 communities that will address pooling funding and things like that, and what we'll use them for, as well as a joint proposal that will focus on 3 buckets. Transportation is one, and for transportation, we are looking at shuttles, trolley, historic trolley, if we can do it, that will run from Alewife to Concord on a continuous loop, and that will keep cars off roads and encourage people to take public transportation. They can get as far as Alewife, but they can't get further. So that is the goal for that. The second bucket is to hire a firm that will oversee event management, PR, and promotion. And the third bucket is actually marketing and paid marketing and promotion going out from that. So we are working on a scope of work for an agency. It's probably not one person, it is probably an agency that can work with the 4 communities. There'll be a small committee, point people from each committee that can then go back to the executive committees for the Concord 250, Lexington 250, and report back. So we are in the process of putting that together. Each of the communities is working on their own efforts to talk to town management and see if we can get some of the $200,000 or some of whatever funds each of the community has into a pot to use towards this initiative, with the idea that we can really show, we've got a lot of data now to show ROI to the administration. And we have twice now had conversations with Kim Driscoll, the lieutenant governor. Thankfully, she and I go back about 10 years, and I'm really happy to have her in our corner as knowing that Concord and Lexington and this region really are putting together a great show, but we do need help, specifically financial help, and we need staff, because right now all the committees are staffed by volunteers, and whatever town staff are able to dedicate time to that. And the other partner I can report on is the Greater Merrimack Valley CVB. I am a board member there, as well as Sonia in Lexington, and we are running a roundtable for the hotels. So Greater Merrimack Valley has 7,000 hotel rooms. So we are in May having a roundtable with all of those hoteliers to find out, are there blackout dates? Are there groups, conventions that they already have bookings for 2 years out? So then we can again go back to the individual committees and say, please don't book an event this date. We're going to have trouble finding hotel rooms. So we're trying to do a much broader and collaborative project. And honestly, personally, I'm really excited that the 4 communities are meeting together on a regular basis and thinking about pooling funding and resources. So that's the update I have. Thanks, Nancy.
So going forward,
I'll just add one thing to what Beth said, that in some of the conversations I had with some people to learn more about where this statewide committee is and where it's going. It hasn't met. It hasn't met recently. It's a little bit dormant, but I think it was Senator Friedman who with whom I had a conversation, told me that from what she has heard in some of her conversations in the Senate, that one of the things this statewide commission does want to see and promote is the collaboration within the towns, particularly the 4 that are on Battle Road. They would really like to have things coordinated and planned and not people going in different directions. So the fact that Beth, you've laid the groundwork for Lexington, Concord, Lincoln, and now Arlington to already have some of these kinds of discussions is, from my point of view, very much in sync with what I hear this statewide commission wants to see.
Yeah, that's encouraging. Because it was a slow start. I think I know that much about that.
Right.
So it looks like we have overlapping boards, which is a great thing. In this case, I think for everybody's time and also for everyone's resources. And I wonder if anybody's talking to Freedom's Way about maybe just or other organizations just putting our name on whatever they're doing as a co-sponsor or whatnot. I don't know. Beth knows something about that. Hi,
Sorry. Sometimes I wish I didn't know things. So
yeah.
So I'm actually partnering with Freedom's Way to launch a Concord 250 podcast. So we have received funding from our local cultural council, and Freedom's Way is the match. So it is a tangent to our Concord 250 collaboration. But because we are partnering with Freedom's Way, we will have representation for the 45 communities that are represented as part of Freedom's Way. That podcast will launch in the next month or two. And our goal is to tell as many stories as we can, making the invisible visible has sort of been our tagline. And so we're really excited to get the project underway. We have some funding, and then we are hoping that to have a couple in the can so that we can start sharing them out, with the hopes that other communities may also be able to contribute some funding that can also be matched with Freedom's Way. So our first story will be about the Robbins House, because Concord was the first to put the funding up for it. And the good news is we actually have press coverage already in hand. Yankee Magazine is very interested in covering the whole process of creating a podcast. They have their own podcast. They also have partnership with PBS GBH in Boston. So we may be able to get a lot of legs out of this. It's new. We're still sort of, again, all volunteers, it's myself, the Umbrella, Freedom's Way, and a couple of people I've roped into my madness here. I've never done a podcast, full disclosure. I just thought this was a great idea for us to get all the communities some recognition and really help establish a sense of place. I'm happy to send the scope that we are working with and our sort of pitch document to this body, but that is one way that Freedom's Way has been a partner for us, and a really good one because they're able to match. And so that is one partnership. And I do think there is a role for the Byway in terms of being a partner and helping support and spread the word. While we don't have funds or staff, we do have our name. And that does go a long way. So I think attaching the Byways committee to some projects would be very helpful in actually just spreading that momentum out there.
And we should probably also always mention the All-American Road aspect of the Byway. So, Richard, your hand.
Yeah, if I can just finish my report.
Well,
So at the meeting, Mike Barrett is probably the single most important person in this whole thing, because the previous administration dropped the ball on the 250th, and places from like Philadelphia and so forth managed to get federal funding, and B, place in priority. And our previous government did nothing on it. So Mike Barrett did get Kim Driscoll interested and managed to see if they would be willing to put in $2 million for this. And they've agreed to do it. And the problem that Mike sees is that, you know, where does the $2 million go to? And that there's obviously a lot of competition elsewhere in the state to say maybe this should be an education thing and we should distribute the evenly across the Commonwealth and so forth, so that, you know, who knows how much we might be able to get. So the other thing I did say is that, you know, obviously we don't have any money in hand, but, you know, if the grant comes through, we would have close to $1 million in infrastructure improvements to the Battle Road that would be available before the celebration. So I think we obviously would probably have the lion's share of money to go towards improvements along the Battle Road in the four towns. So obviously, you know, this group that's meeting should enlist someone from the national park, because I think the park obviously has some of their own money and has other things to add to this, plus Freedom's Way, plus the Battle Road Byway should be included in these four groups, you know, in order to make the strongest pitch that we can. So I think we shouldn't just think of the four towns, but think in a bigger picture to get Freedom's Way on board holistically, as well as the Byway Committee and as well as the park. So that's the only thing I said. The two things, you know, to include Arlington, and that, you know, if we get the grant, there's going to be close to $1 million in infrastructure improvements
Right.
on the byway.
People should probably review the grant so they know what might be coming their way. I think if we are awarded money from the grant.
Nancy, with respect to the grant, a question: are we bound to spend the money exactly as it was initially proposed, or is there some flexibility to adjust the scope of work when the, you know, the notice of award comes?
I suppose there's some degree of flexibility within certain parameters, but I'm not a federal grants person, so maybe a federal person could help, or people who have worked with federal grants before. I think that if we get anything, that will be very, very clearly and explicitly spelled out. That's what I think I know.
That's
I-
correct. You don't, if we are successful with the grant, it's based on what we had proposed. So there's not really much flexibility outside of that framework. But they would clearly delineate the requirements of the grant. So if there was something, for example, an element that we had included in the proposal and we funded it in a different way, so it no longer needs the grant funding, that's probably something you could talk to the grant office with. But no, there shouldn't be an assumption that you would really have the flexibility to do anything outside of what was included in our grant proposal.
Okay.
Thanks. Thank you.
I see Sarah has her hand up.
Yes, thank you. I have a request for Beth. And that is, if you could include the Lincoln Historical Society in discussions regarding putting together podcasts of stories. We've been doing a lot of work on research on the invisible and enslaved peoples of that era. So, and also obviously Historic New England has too, with the work they've done on researching the Codman House. So we're looking for ways and platforms to begin to bring this forward. So this might be a perfect opportunity for us to help shape our work and contribute to the stories that you're discussing via podcast or whatever. So if you could just, you know, add us, reach out. I'm currently out of town, but I'll be back next week.
I will send you, that's great. And we're like, Patrice has done a ton of her own research because she's worked in every single community. And there's some fantastic stories that I have never heard of.
Yeah,
So we're doing Count Rumsford in Medford, and the guy that's on your baking powder containers. So I'm psyched. Yes, I will include you, and I'll send you the scope so you see what we're up to for starters.
thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else have any thoughts, ideas? I know Simone, I think probably the park is in touch with a lot of people beyond itself. So I don't know if this is the best way or to join or stay connected to Beth's group. I'll call it Beth's group, but it's the 4-town group.
Yes, and similar to what Beth was mentioning, obviously, we do a lot with Patrice Tedisco at Freedom's Way, because she does have that sort of easy network with the 40+ communities. So I actually saw her last night, and we were chatting a bit, as well as with the Essex National Heritage Area, and
yeah.
opportunities to kind of cross heritage area boundaries for opportunities associated with the 250th. So there's definitely a lot of enthusiasm for those connections. And the park is very interested in trying to help to make those connections and being a part of those different groups. So I think in the end, it all comes down to sort of the broader collaboration, because everyone is actively doing a variety of different things and just trying to pull it all together.
Beth, am I correct that you had quite a bit of familiarity with the Essex National Heritage Area
Yes.
when you worked in Salem, right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, so there's a person who might know about that too. Jen?
Hi, yeah, I just wanted to add that the Lincoln Select Board is in the process of creating the Link 250th, so a Lincoln 250th coordinating group. And I'll give updates to the committee once that's established and whatever those discussions are.
That's great to know. I was going to ask. Okay. If we've got enough on that topic, we can move on to other business. And I think we can deal with Paul's letter first. Did everybody have a chance to read it? It is a letter of support for Foot of Rocks that might go to various other funders, grant funders or whatnot. Have people had a chance to read it?
No.
It's quite short, which makes it easy. Just a minute.
Did we get an email or a link?
And,
Yeah, I think Anne sent it out with the reminder of today's meeting. I bet you
Oh.
guys could each read it in 2 minutes, 1 minute.
maybe it would help if I just told the committee what's in the letter. It is short, it's simple. I don't think it needs to be very elaborate for the purposes we're using, but the letter states that the Battle Road Scenic Byway Committee is aware of the Foot of the Rocks project, that aware of the master plan that had been created by the initial conceptual design. It states the Battle Road Byway Committee believes that this monument being reimagined, redesigned would be a very additive activity for the Battle Road and its historical legacy. And then there's a paragraph that says the committee offers its support and encouragement to the town of Arlington in its efforts to have this project completed. So such a letter would be helpful for us in Arlington as we look for grant funding to help complete this. The overall estimate is round numbers are around $1 million right now. So we want to see if we can get some outside funding.
Yeah.
Well, I see the letters. I see the letters now up on the screen. Thank you, and
Yeah, thank you. So I don't necessarily think this requires a vote, but maybe a sense of the meeting.
I'll move that the Byway Committee send this letter.
Do you want to have a vote?
Yeah.
Okay, you made a motion. Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
I don't, oh, sure.
Is that Sheila?
Yeah, although I realize I don't know if Lexington can second themselves, so.
I'll second the motion from Arlington.
Okay, okay, we have a vote. Arlington, what do you
Yes.
say?
Arlington votes yes.
Lexington,
Yes.
yes, I see. Yes, Lincoln,
Lincoln votes
voting
yes.
members, what do you think?
Lincoln votes
Where is she?
yes.
There's Jennifer. Okay. Concord. Yes. And the park?
Yes.
There we go. Okay.
Thank
Paul,
you, everyone. I appreciate your support, and so will the town of Arlington. Thank you very much.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you, Paul. Okay.
Nancy, this is Jane.
Yes.
I was going on through Arlington. I kind of like the idea of having that cannon face right off of the point there. Maybe it might intimidate some of those crazy Massachusetts drivers.
Well, that's one way to slow down people. Sorry. Okay. The other things we have, oops, I probably put this in here wrong. We could do member updates first and then do other business, or vice versa. I don't care. Let's take it in order, I guess. We'll check on the committee members in terms, we've been trying to get this information up to date. Now we have two new members at least. I was reappointed. Not sure what, Beth's on too many committees and her term expires, so I don't know what's going to happen there. But have Richard, have the other towns and submitted what you've been trying to get for months?
I haven't heard anything. Apparently there's some changes in Lincoln. I have no idea. And Arlington had said that with staffing and board changes that nobody was making any decisions. I don't know if Arlington has anything to add as well.
Well,
the appointed members from Arlington, appointed by the Board of Selectmen, no specified term that I recall, are myself, George Parsons, and Clarissa. Allie Carter, of course, you all knew Allie was a very helpful, vibrant, positive force working with us in Arlington on Battle Road activities.
absolutely.
She resigned her position, took a new job in Lowell. The person that the town hired to replace her, he resigned rather suddenly last week to take on a sort of emergency assignment in his hometown of Methuen. So we don't have that position filled yet. And
So the membership stays the same.
yes,
With no clear expiration date, sounds like.
yeah.
All right.
And you, George, and do you have one vacant? Where's Clarissa?
Clarissa had to step off the meeting. I got a note from her on the side. She had another meeting at 10:30.
But is she your third?
Correct.
Yeah.
She,
Yeah. Okay.
So what's
Okay,
that?
and then the two new members from Lincoln are here with us today, Andrew Glass and Craig Nicholson, who I think we introduced somehow at the beginning of the meeting. I hope. I think. But anyway, so there's Richard, there's that.
So
If you could send information about your appointment. Did you say that already, Jen?
So
Okay.
I sent it to Anne, but they weren't officially appointed until Monday. So I was waiting for that to send, but I'll send you their information,
Yeah,
Richard.
and the appointments are from the select board and the term is
2 years.
2 years. Okay. Oh, there you go.
And the three members are,
Craig Nicholson,
right,
Andrew Glass, and myself.
okay,
My term expires in 24.
okay, okay,
And Andrew and Craig are with us today.
okay, great.
Excellent. Well, welcome.
And then the sort of item that's a perennial item, and it's maybe unfair to ask Lincoln's new members this today, but I keep trying to put the MOU and the update of the MOU on the table. I have gotten some feedback from people about the need and the interest, but I'm curious to know, do we want to pursue that now, particularly maybe the creation of a stakeholder group? I think that the MOU is quite old and we don't follow it. And it may be worthy, people may like the way it works. It drives me crazy. But if there's no energy for that, I guess there's no energy for that. So I'm asking, where is the interest? And when should we pursue it? I mean, it's becoming very common now for people to say, well, let's talk about it after the 250th. So that's that's a while away. Simone, I see your hands up.
Thank you, Nancy. So I think it's worth taking the time to sort of review the MOU to the point that, it has been over 10 years now. I think it's just healthy as a group for us to review it, especially with some new members that have rotated on. Fresh eyes is always beneficial as well. And maybe that's something we can tackle over the summer. To just sort of recommit to what we want to commit for as a group. If there are things that we should adjust, that we can adjust those. Again, I just think it's healthy, especially now that we're past the 10-year mark, to evaluate, because a lot has been accomplished, but maybe there's other things that we want to sort of take into consideration as we look ahead to the next 10 years. So that's just my thought from the park.
Thank you. Richard, I know you've also been hammering away at us for this.
So I was involved in the formation of the new bylaws. And, part of it is to get to those bylaws, we had to get everybody on board. And the town of Lincoln was fairly insistent, Mr. Braun, Selectman Braun, that certain things had to be in there. And I think part of which is causing, I think one of the reasons why we're not able to accomplish more, because the idea was that the byway and the interconnectedness of the byway was the important thing. And how do we provide stewardship for the byway? And what seems to have happened is we've become fairly town-centric in saying my portion of the byway should be this, or my portion of the byway, we want this to happen, irrespective of how it fits in with the whole byway. So there's two ways to go about it. One, I think Simone is correct that we should have a committee, a subgroup, maybe somebody from each town or something, sort of review specifically what's in the bylaw to say what works, what doesn't work in terms of our own operations. And the other part is how do we get away from the town-centric part of administering things? And the idea originally was there were going to be the core group consisting of the towns in the park to sort of do the nuts and bolts, but that we wanted to have a stakeholder group to represent different kinds of interests. And we envision that stakeholder group to be citizens, historical societies, DPW people, museums, to sort of represent what is in the, because our charge is essentially to implement the master plan for the byway. And, you know, if we become too town centric, we sort of lose sight of that. And one of the values of having the stakeholder group is to get that additional input to help us focus on what's important along the whole byway. So I think both things need to occur. I think, you know, we probably might start with a, if the chair were to appoint maybe a 5-person committee to meet and look at the byway paragraph by paragraph to see what works, what doesn't work. I think that would be a good thing to do immediately. And I think we ought to start thinking about, I mean, one of the things that we had said a long time ago is that it's really critical to have a stakeholder group, and we haven't done it. We have had a mailing list of like 100 people. So one of the things I would like to do is to just ask this group, what types of folks from your community or even outside the community would be a good stakeholder person? You know, should we, you know, the stakeholder group, should they meet semi-annually, quarterly, once a year? How big should it be? Should it be a dozen to 18 people, or should it be a larger group? You know, how do we, I mean, obviously, one of the things in terms of community building is that we had said, gee, now that we're an All America Road, we should have a celebration. And we haven't had it yet. And, you know, with the, 225 anniversary coming up, we should do something, you know, to help build community around the byway and the 4 towns and the park. So I, you know, when we talked about the concept for a stakeholders group, we sort of tossed around some ideas. How big should it be? What kind of influence should they have on the core group? And, you know, I'd like to get some thoughts from folks today. And what I'd like to do is the next time we meet, I would like everyone to identify, I don't know, maybe a dozen people who could possibly be in the stakeholders group, and we can sort of vet that and try and figure out how do we get the right mix of people. I'll stop here.
I think that's a good idea. I think you've asked for that before.
And
And,
that's right now.
and you have drafted, yeah, you have drafted quite a list that might help jar people's thinking about this. Could you pass that around again, or
Yep.
or perhaps we could post it on, or send to the broader byway group, the distribution list.
Mhm.
And I think that one thing I've been thinking about is we have real work to do among our towns and among the park. And it's the same group that, you know, the same group that's working on the 250th separately is the same group that meets here. So I'm thinking that that's a redundancy that doesn't need to happen here. And I have the same kind of feeling for what's happening with Massport, that this is not a substitute for hats, but it's the only way people are getting together in the Hanscom area towns area. So I don't think it's appropriate for us to try to fill in for that role. And I wish the towns would be getting together on their own, because that's a major thing. But to get to my point, we're only required right now to have 3 meetings a year. I frankly have been thinking about quarterly meetings, we're already beyond, we probably already oversubscribed, but if we did that, we'd meet in January, July, January, April, July, and October. So that's also something I've been thinking about, that until we get this, my own personal opinion, till we get this MOU straightened out and updated, my inclination is not to be spinning our wheels all the time about this. So anyway, I see other people have their hands up. Sheila, you haven't spoken yet.
Hi, thank you. So I think the updating the MOU is a good idea. I'm happy to work on that, although I'm a little swamped for the next month. But also the idea of a stakeholders group. I do think it's important to reach out, but I personally am sort of it kind of overwhelms me, and I worry that it's a redundancy, as Nancy suggested, to have a stakeholder group, because it's sort of the same people. And I think maybe I would propose to commit to maybe twice a year or once a year, or whatever the group wants to do, that we have our regular meeting, but have it, I don't know, maybe in the evening so more people can attend, and invite sort of the broader stakeholder groups to attend and participate, rather than have this separate group that we need to maintain. Just kind of consciously invite them in at certain times, and those meetings will be a little more formal in that we're giving more detailed updates, but we'll have specific questions that we want the stakeholders to provide or participate in.
I think that's a really good idea to think about. It's more this kind of 10,000 foot, where are you going and what are you doing? Kind of a group.
Yeah.
Because and then nothing would preclude members of the stakeholder group from joining subcommittees according to our current MOU. And nothing would preclude their attendance at our regular meetings. So it would be sort of honorary, but at the same time, it would give a formal entree to many different voices that we can't really represent here. So, Sarah? Thank you, Sheila.
Let's see, yes, I'm unmuted. Thank you. Having been part of that original group that Richard referred to, that and one of the recalcitrant towns that has been called out as being rather parochial in it. I would urge the group to reaffirm, and I love Sheila's idea of having a couple of meetings in the evening with a broader group. It is a way of informing the communities writ large as to the work of the Byway committee and the importance of the collective actions and not just the parochial actions. And it would remind the committee itself that it has this broader charge, which is to look holistically at the Battle Road and be its advocate. But remember, also, I want to remind you that it's not the Battle Road, it's roads to revolution. So there are a variety of other aspects to the Battle Road that could be celebrated, and especially for those towns that are have committees dealing with economic development, it might be wise to look at the abilities to celebrate those aspects. Right now, we're focused on the 18th century for obvious reasons, but to think broader, and you can do that then in these larger stakeholder meetings if you choose to reach out to some of those people interested in the technology revolutions and other things. But finally, my one last point would be that, the committee itself might also consider turning to stakeholders and saying, what would you like to see us do? How can we enhance the work from your perspective with your eyes and ears? Thank you.
So just to hear you remind us that it's the road to revolutions, period, or plural, rather. And it makes me think not only of industrial aspects, but also architectural. We could venture forth from the 18th century and maybe look at the modern innovations that came with industrialization and modernization of thinking about cities and towns. And our towns are sometimes illustrative of that. So,
And the arts and philosophy.
yeah, for
So
sure.
there are many layers to this, that this committee, in fact, is charged to be celebrating.
Okay. Thank you. Other thoughts now? If Richard wants to collect ideas, he seems to have said he's willing to do that.
All right, so the one thing I would like to have accomplished at this meeting is to agree that there will be whether 5-person committee, a representative from each town, to meet to tear apart the MOU and to come back to this group with some suggestions.
So are you making a motion?
I'll make a
Or
motion.
I'd have to go back and check.
Right. And
the
what I'd like,
MOU, because you said that the chair could appoint. I'm not
Yeah,
sure.
that's right.
Is that one of my, is that one of my powers? I'm not familiar with that. And I'd have to go back and check the MOU or Robert's rules, I guess.
Okay.
Some of you are much more experienced in that. But I get your point. I think you're ready to get up and go on this right now. And I'm thinking there might be hesitation to take on a major governance review right now. But I don't know what other people are thinking. I think people should definitely, a couple of things. On Concord's website, the Battle Road Scenic Byway has a page, committee has a page. On that page, there is the memorandum of understanding. There's also the corridor management plan. And for the benefit of everybody, maybe we should post some of the final documents for the grant. But Concord's Battle Road Scenic Byway page has a lot of information. Andrew.
Thank you, Nancy, and thank you, Richard. And I think, speaking for myself, but maybe Craig will agree, it might be easier for us to, before being asked to decide whether we launch into a review of the bylaws for the group, to have some understanding of them. And, with our apologies, we're just getting up and running on those aspects of the committee. So unless there's a reason to act today, I think, maybe our preference would be to have that vote next month, where we have a little bit more of an understanding of the MOU and the context.
My thinking was going in the direction that we didn't need to meet every month if we don't have the grant, Scenic Byway grant. I know our time is extremely limited. Everybody here, I think, is extra busy given the upcoming activities for the 250th, which does seem to be getting legs. For a long time, I thought maybe it wasn't going to go very far, very fast, but it seems to be picking up a lot of steam. So I can certainly see what you're saying, Andrew.
Thank you.
Any other thoughts? Paul?
Yeah, with just a counter idea to what Rich was saying about a 5-person committee. So I agree with what Simone said. It is worthwhile, probably more than worthwhile, important to review this memorandum of understanding, but we could have each member commit that they would read through it and create a set of comments, maybe 5 each, and then they can be brought to the committee for discussion, but I don't know, that delegating this to a 5-person group who's going to meet and tear this thing apart. I don't see a benefit to tearing the thing apart. I mean, maybe it just needs to be modified a bit and updated, not completely redebated.
Yeah, I think of it as an update, but who knows where that will take us. But I like the idea of the members going back to their community, right? But the members explicitly to review the foundational document, which is the MOU. And the corridor management plan, while really big, it's very dense, but it's also very good, I think. And it would be a good grounding for especially people new to the committee and the concepts and the history, the storied history of the Battle Road Scenic Byway. So I tend to think that too. And then come back at a regular meeting and have that discussion.
So one of the things I will do after this meeting is I will send to the members. When we applied for All America Road status, we told Federal Highway, here's what we plan to do. And so I will send you what we said we were going to do
In the application.
in the application.
And the application is basically built upon the application for the Battle Road Scenic Byway itself, right? And then extends somewhat.
Yeah, so this was what we told the feds. If you make us an All America Road, here are what we plan to do.
Yeah, okay, that sounds like a good idea. And then everybody will know the additional layer from the All-American Road designation at the same time.
Mhm.
Final comments, Sarah?
Very quickly, I'm going to step out on a little bit of a limb shortly and suggest Bob Domnitz, perhaps. I'm happy to spend some time with Andrew and Craig to go through how we got to where we are. Because I was very involved for the early days of constructing the MOU and all that went into it in the back and forth. So, and I believe Bob was party to that also. So I'm volunteering you, Bob, also to give some of the deep background and we can fast forward. But finally, I'm intrigued with the page that Concord has on its website. I have one question and then a suggestion. And my question is the application for the American Highway included on that page? Because I know that page is fairly comprehensive. That's a question.
You mean the grant application?
Yes.
No,
Yes.
That's what I was saying. I think now is a good time to put that up.
That would be fantastic.
I'm sure all the towns have that already, the final,
Well,
the towns,
but
not individual people.
But if the 4 towns took a look at that page, and if the towns, I know Lincoln doesn't have anything equivalent. If we could lift that page and all the 4 towns have this same page so that we're literally all on the same page.
You mean have a Battle Road Scenic Byway page that's common
Correct.
to all the towns. I think that's
Correct.
really a good idea.
Correct. It should not be complicated, but Beth or whoever in Concord has created a very, very good comprehensive page with links to a zillion wonderful things. So
Now, wait a minute now. What has Beth created that's different from what's on the, maybe this is something we can
No,
learn.
the town page, that wasn't me. I mean, I think it was done by,
You're talking about the Battle Road Scenic Byway page?
on
That was
the
about
town-
planning.
on
What?
the town website.
Yes,
Yeah.
and that's where the Battle Roads, I think, Ann Clifford had a lot to do that, and the other people in the planning department before that.
Well, regardless of who created it, thank you.
Oh, wait. There's also a link to the Battle Road Scenic Byway website.
Yes.
And that's something to look at too, because it's unclear to me who owns that page, who controls that page, where it lives. I think it's very static. I think it hasn't changed much in a very long time. So that's another good thing. And there's a hot link in there to that.
There's an asterisk then on that one. But nonetheless, I'm suggesting that everybody consider taking that web page and reconstructing it across the 4 towns so that we all have similar.
Good idea. Anne and I will look into what that takes. I will commit her. Anne, where are you? I think that's a good idea because it's very hard. It's very hard to find minutes. I'm remiss in that regard, although I must say the Battle Road Scenic Byway Committee is in good company. But just in terms of a record, everybody would know what happened and everybody would have the same information easily accessible if we had a common page. And the park, I don't know if they want. I think you could just go where you wanted, right? Right? You don't need a.
In terms of.
You want it on your website.
Yeah, I mean, we have certain requirements of what we're allowed and not allowed to link to. So
Yeah.
it's a little bit more complicated.
Well, if we had at least 4 similar identical pages, that'd be great. Okay. All right. So I think, Richard, there seems to be a consensus that we don't want to dive into this all at once right now, but that everybody's agreeing. I think that all the members and entities should be going back and looking at the foundational documents for this organization and the aspirations as well as the parameters for it. So that can be agreed, and then all we have to do is decide, are we going to have intervening monthly meetings or are we going to meet next in July? Unless we hear about the grant. If we hear about the grant, yeah, that's a whole different kettle of fish. We'll meet as soon as possible.
Nancy, can you hear me, first of all?
Yes.
Okay. Regarding the foundational documents, Richard brought up a very interesting point about how there's been a tendency of the towns to act parochially rather than communally with all the other members. And I don't think the foundational documents ever recognize the asymmetry of the members, which is that Lincoln and Concord have an interest which overlaps with the national park. And most of Lexington and all of Arlington are not in the national park. So there's a tendency for Lincoln and Concord, I would think, to defer to the national park. And it's much easier for Arlington and Lexington to act independently, as they did recently in all the changes to Lexington Center. So I don't know what the solution to that is, but there may be some fundamental issue here that we all need to think about because the towns don't have a symmetrical relationship to the entire entity.
Well, to put a further point on that, I think Concord's historical resources are intricately interwoven with the historic resources in the park.
So when we figured out we wanted those 4 towns to be the byway group, we purposefully wanted to ensure, by the way, parts of the park are in Lexington, but we wanted to include Arlington, despite the fact that none of it is in the park, because again, Road to Revolutions, that although April 19th is our biggest story, it's not our only story. And I think there was some larger thought, and the thought was not to go into Cambridge because that could overwhelm us. And if we went too far astray, Ed Markey would insist that we include Medford and Malden. Don't forget, Paul Revere came through those two
Oh,
towns.
that's right.
So we tried to contain the towns in the byway.
Okay, that's good perspective. Interesting, looking at this picture here in front of me of all these people. Clarissa isn't here, but you have to count Clarissa, Bob, Sarah, Richard. I don't know about the rest of you guys, and myself. I signed the MOU. So we've got a lot of old creaky, creaky people. Not really creaky, but long-term people that have maybe not reviewed what the byway's all about for a long time. So that's all I just want to say. Okay, I think we're good on that for now. Have we exhausted member updates, or should we briefly go through those? I see. I'll ask Paul first. Does Arlington have anything more to add?
I'll just.
It's 11 o'clock after 11.
I'll go through a few things quickly. We talked about the Foot of the Rocks project and your letter of support. Thank you very much. We do have a grant request into, it's been approved by our community preservation team. It's now subject to town meeting approval to do a detailed engineering design of the concept and the master plan. We expect to get that. I think that would take about 4 to 6 months to do. We're racing the clock to be able to get this design completed and then get into construction sometime in 2024. So yeah, it's going to be an issue, but we're on top of it. I'll also mention that Arlington now has a new town manager. We had an acting town manager, and that person will be retiring, and a gentleman named Jim Feeney, who is the deputy town manager, has been appointed by the selectmen to become the new permanent town manager, and that takes effect on August 1st.
Wow.
I think this will be very good. I've worked with Jim on this Foot of the Rock project, so he's aware of the Battle Road and the work of the committee, and been a strong advocate for pushing the Foot of the Rocks project forward. So that's it for Arlington.
Okay. Lexington, who wants to speak? Sheila, your hand was up.
Sure. So we're working through a punch list for the center streetscape. They're adding more brick sidewalk kind of on the roads that sort of go out from Mass Ave. And the work has been started on the Battle Road. The Battle Green and that road project. They're kind of working on like pre-utility stuff. The major construction, I think, is not expected to happen for a few more weeks, or to really start for a few more weeks. So that's what we got. Richard, I don't know if you have others.
Yeah, I got two things. Number one is, we were formally designated to have a cultural district that goes from East Lexington to Lexington Center. There's going to be a ribbon cutting on May 18th, and everybody's invited to come to that. The other thing, I think, which is probably fairly important for this group, is town meeting. So we have what was the former Lexington Branch Library in East Lexington that closed 5 years ago, or more than that, 10 years ago. When there was a flood, the pipes flooded the building, and the building has been unoccupied. And we've made some half-hearted efforts to do something, but the will sort of says what that building can be used for. And at this past town meeting, we appropriated money to fix the building somewhat. And the idea from the study group is that this would become a lyceum, a meeting place. And I think in terms of Road to Revolutions, this could be a very important piece of the Battle Road.
Could you
Um,
write up something about that, Richard? I'm sorry to interrupt you. but
Yeah, I will, and I will do
before I
that.
Yeah, send it to us so we'll know a little bit more what you're talking about, because I
Yep.
remember you've brought it up before.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, Lexington, Lincoln. Nothing happened over in Lincoln, right? It's really quiet.
I think other than, what Jennifer mentioned about the committee for the 250th, the Lincoln planning committee for that. I don't know that we have anything else, Andrew, to add.
Not right now, Craig. Thank you.
Okay, I'm sure there'll be more. And Concord, Beth, did you say everything you wanted to say, or do you have anything else to add? New deputy town manager.
Yes, I guess I can talk about that really quickly. So we have 2 new staff that are will relate to this committee. So Megan Zamuto is our deputy town manager. She started the first week of April. She was formerly the assistant administrator in Maynard, and before that was in Lexington. So she will be familiar to many of you. So she is officially on board now and will be the interim director of planning and land management, effective May 31st, when Marcia Rasmussen retires after 35 years.
Yeah.
So she will spend the first sort of 6 months of her tenure with the divisions. Right now, the Department of Planning and Land Management here has grown to include 5 divisions, including me as like sort of the outlier. So the role Megan will play is sort of look at how everything is operating and make recommendations to the town manager moving forward. And the second new hire is Mimi Graney. She is our new economic vitality officer. Current reporting structure is to the deputy town manager, she's reporting to Megan. She was formerly in Somerville and a lot of other locations. Her claim to fame sort of is she created the Fluff Festival in Somerville as a way to spur some economic vitality there. So we're really happy to have her. She'll be working more directly with the restaurants and the retailers and the realting office to both work on retention and acquisition of new businesses coming into Concord.
So one more new staff member is the director of sustainability. So Concord's longstanding conservation coffee, which meets the first Tuesday of every month, is now going to be the conservation and sustainability coffee. And so they're trying to integrate some of the work that they're doing, and that's going to be interesting.
Yes, that's Eric Sims, if anybody hasn't met him.
Yeah. Sorry, thank you.
Yep.
Simone, what's going on over there?
Yeah, just real quick. So we actually had the director of the National Park Service in the park on Monday. He was with us all day, which was really exciting. And had the opportunity to meet with some of our partners, but also to go over our Great American Outdoors Act. So if you've driven through, you might have seen some of our structures are currently under construction, which has been very exciting for us. So this is the first phase of work, and that work will be continuing through the year into next year. We recently awarded our phase 2, which is the trails work, and we expect boots on the ground for rehabbing primarily the Battle Road Trail starting this summer. And we're working now to prepare our phase 3, which is the landscaping portion of the project. And we are hoping to have that contracted this summer for work to begin primarily in 2024. So again, the goal is for us to get as much of this done in time for the anniversary. We also have our signage project, which we've actually split into 2 different phases. There'll be a handful of signs that go in prior to the anniversary, and then the bulk of the wayfinding signage replacement would go in after the anniversary. So there is a lot happening. There'll be a lot of contractors and in-house preservation crews in the park. We also have youth groups that we're working with on the historic trades, which is really exciting. And hopefully we'll have some folks from Minuteman Tech join us this summer to learn the preservation trades. So you'll see a lot going on in the byway corridor. So if you have any questions, please just let me know.
Simone, I'm curious, who are the contractors in phase 1 and phase 2?
So Classic Solutions is phase one for the buildings and structures. So they're doing work in conjunction with our in-house preservation crews out of Hayes. So they're kind of doing a combo of work. And then our phase two trail work was awarded to Edward Page, which is also a women-owned local business. And obviously, once we contract for phase three for the landscaping, I will share who that is. But those are our two contractors on board at this point.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Okay, I think that's it. If there are no more public comments or other comments, Josh?
Yes, sorry, can you hear me? My internet
Yes.
is really weird.
You can see you too.
Yes, I actually, I just was communicating with someone else, and it looks like I was actually incorrect about the contract being awarded. I think MAS may have been one of the bidders, but it looks like it actually has not been awarded. So apologies for that misinformation.
Okay, that's good. But soon,
Hello?
sounds like still
sorry.
soon, right?
So it has gone out for advertising. There are bidders, but the award is still.
Probably it's just still in review, I guess. Submissions. Oops, we lost you. Okay, well, thank you. I think that was the most important thing. All right. Paula always said I had to have a roll call vote to adjourn the meeting, but I'm not sure she's correct. Yeah, I see some support for that. So hearing no other comments, I think we can adjourn our meeting for today. Thank you all.
Everybody.
Wow.
Thank you.
Thank you.